So the aim of strategic human resource management is, the first one we have is advanced flexibility. If you are an employee of an organization, you have your professional life plus you have your personal. Fortis 5 Force help to identify where power lies in a business situation. So where exactly the power is. We need to see it is not just the supplier power or the buyer power. We should also see our competitive rivalry, how much they are selling at. Hello everybody, a warm welcome to one and all. I'm Abhilash Chandra from the Department of Commerce and Management in Vidyashram First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence. Welcome to all the students for the first session of the 5th chapter. This is the last chapter called the Strategic Human Resource Management. Now, when we go with the strategic human resource management, you will understand that human resource management is not a very small subject. It's a very vast subject where strategies is also involved in it. Now, what exactly the strategy is to do with human resource management? Now, when we go with the introduction of it, the strategic human resource management is a 21st century happening topic here. Now, when I say this is the topic of 21st century, please understand the holistic human resource management have a small part, that is the strategic human resource management, which is also called as SHRM, strategic human resource management. Now here, strategic human resource management is a connection between a company's human resource and its strategies, objectives, and goal. So the aim of strategic human resource management is, the first one we have is advanced flexibility, innovation, and competitive advantage. Now here competition is a cutthroat here right now in the 21st century. Each and every corporate, they do have their own human resource management. So how will they attract more people to actually join their company and work productively? So that's the reason we go with the strategic human resource management, to attract as well as to retain the employees and to make them efficient as well as effective. Now here, when we understand this strategic human resource management, each and every employee of an organization will have to do certain goals and they have certain roles in doing those goals. So that is why the strategic human resource management always aims at fulfilling the objectives, to see to it what the policies are, to know what exactly the method they are supposed to adopt, and then they will go with the procedure and the rules. Now here, to develop a fit for purpose organizational culture. So for each and every employee here, the organization culture should be defined properly. So strategic human resource management will make sure that each and every person will be knowing that what they are supposed to do and what they are not supposed to do it. That's the reason we use strategic human resource management. And the last one is to improve the business performance. See, every industries or the company or any kind of a small business to the very multinational companies, they do one thing, that is they want more profitability. They want to grow, they want to expand, they want to have more productivity. So what is that they are supposed to do? They will go with a unique kind of their attribution towards the society as well as towards the organization. So here what happens, because of the cutthroat competition, each and every individual who is running the business, they adapt SHRM, that is a strategic human resource management, so that they can be differentiated between the organization as well as the industries. Now the next one we have is human resource management, effectiveness and the business success. How it is effective and how that will result to the business success. For any business success, we are supposed to know that it's a human who actually takes the initiative and it is a human who actually makes it a flop. So it is all because of the human being who is actually there in the organization. It is not totally depend on the physical resources or other resources apart from human resource. That means human resource is a very prominent entity here in the organizational success or failure. So when we go with that, any organization will have proper human resource management. So they will go with three things. That is to improve the capability of an individual, target one person, and he should actually develop to his or her greatest efficiency is what the human resource manager will always aim at. The second one is to develop team spirit of an individual and the department. So it is now not about only one person. Now that one person, how flexible he is with his team and how will he mingle with his team and then work towards the achieving the goals which is set by the organization. That is what we are supposed to see. Second thing is how well the department has accepted many other people and then how exactly they are contributing for the success of the organization. That is the second one. Now when we understand individual growth plus the team growth plus the organizational growth, that will lead to what? That is the growth of the organization. And the last one is to obtain necessary cooperation from the employees to promote organizational effectiveness. So if you understand how human resource management is effective in the sense, firstly what we did is we only concentrate on one particular person and he need to grow to his greatest efficiency what he can actually achieve. After that we need to see that how he will mingle with other people and how he will contribute towards the growth of the organization, and that will definitely promote what? The organizational effectiveness. That means each and every person are growing to their greatest efficiency. That is what the strategic human resource management aims at. That is what the strategy of the human resource management is. Next one is the effectiveness. When we talk about effectiveness, please do understand we go with these 5 layers. When I say the 5 layers, the first level which we go with is the social level. Through human resource management, we can actually go with the social level. Say that if you are an employee of an organization, you have your professional life plus you have your personal life. Now, when you are professionally very confident, definitely you will have a confidence in the social life with the society itself. The second one is professional level. Now, we need to see to it that each and every employee who is working in an organization, professionally, he should grow. So, when he is growing professionally, what happens is he is actually getting all the discipline which he is supposed to have. And then what happens is there is a balance between the professional and the social. Next is individual level. So, as I told you that any employee, whether a male or a female, or any other gender. So individual level, when I say that, you need to understand, one should always know how much we can actually reach. That is the maximum of it. And human resource management always tells you that you can do something more than what you have done yesterday. So individual level, if anybody can actually increase every day, then that was what we call that as a self-actualization, where you feel that you can do anything and everything and you always want to master the art of doing it. Next one is the national level and the organizational level. So the more we are in the human resource management and we are actually giving work to the people and people are doing it, now what happens is the per capita of income will also increase, plus the organizational growth will also increase. So this is what the levels which will affect because of the human resource management. When I say effect, it is not AFF, it is effect EFF. That means here the effectiveness of human resource management is all listed here. That is the social level, professional level, individual level, national level, and the organizational level. Everything, it is always an advantage of using human resource management. Next, we are supposed to go with the Michel Porter's theory. Now, please understand, he is a person who has given 5 concepts, the very famous 5 concepts for the competitors, what exactly it happens. Now, when we go with this Michel Porter's here, this theory is based on the concept that there are 5 forces. How many are there? There are 5. 5 forces that determines the competitive intensity and attractiveness of a market. So here the strategy which we are supposed to use is, one of the strategies, the Michelle Porter, how to attract customers, how to beat the competition, and how to market your products, and how to be profitable. That is what Michelle Porter has actually explained in his 5 forces. The first one here, when we go with it, Porter's 5 forces help to identify where power lies in a business situation. So where exactly the power is, whom you are supposed to concentrate, whom you are not supposed to concentrate. See, understand, this is what the strategy is. The strategy is not that we are supposed to go for the selling. The strategy is to see the weakness of your competitor and the strength of yourself, and then go with your strengths and play with their weakness. This is useful both in understanding the strength of an organization, current competitive position, and the strength of the position that an organization may look to move into. So this is what Porter feels about. Now, when we go with the 5 forces, here I have listed the 5 forces for you people to understand that what exactly he means to say. He says that there are the 5 forces. These 5 forces, this is what his strategy says, is we need to play with the weakness of the competitor, and we need to always go with our strength. So his strategy is very simple. He aims at, the first thing is the supplier power. So who is the person who is actually supplying, and what exactly the power he has, so that he can raise the price. Then we have the buyer power. When we understand the buyer power, the buyer is always doing the opposite of what supplier does. Now supplier will increase the price, the buyer will actually decrease the price. That buyer wants to make the price come little down. It is always like that, right? Next is competitive rivalry. We need to see it is not just the supplier power or the buyer power. We should also see our competitive rivalry, how much they are selling at. Say example, if I take you the supplier power, now supplier says it is 180 rupees, you are supposed to go with. The buyer will always go for a kind of a compromise where he'll tell that I'll not buy for 180, if it is for 160 I would have purchased it. Now it is 160. But we know that the competitor is there, and competitor is giving the same kind of a product for 130 rupees. Now what happens? See, what we decided, what the market wants, but in the market already what exactly the competitor is giving at. Next is threat of substitution. The same kind of a product, there is a substitute which is actually for 80 rupees. Now what will happen? See, 180, where exactly does come? And the last one here is threat of new entry. Threat of new entry. Now here, threat of new entry in the sense, a new product has come which has more version towards whatever we have produced, and they are giving it for 70 rupees. Now these are what the 5 forces which Porter has actually estimated, and he gave a theory, and here which we are supposed to study. Now understand which is the most powerful equipment or a weapon for the competitive rivalry to actually go. Next one we have is the supplier power. Now what it assesses, an assessment of how easy it is for supplier to drive up price. That means the price will shoot up. This is driven by the number of suppliers of each essential input, uniqueness, please understand the word here, uniqueness of their product. If you have a uniqueness in your product, definitely your price will shoot up. See, you can take n number of examples. If I go with more, you will feel that it is HRM. More than that, you will feel that it is like a marketing. Say example, you have iPhones, where iPhone uniqueness was there, and that's the reason it is into lakhs together. Now we had a mobile phone called Nokia. Now Nokia, we never wanted to actually go with Nokia in the 21st century. The reason being is they were not updated. Though they were really good in the market of 2000 to 2002, but later Samsung actually came in because Nokia's updating power was very lacking behind. And then what happened? Samsung came. After Samsung, we got to know there is one more person who came to the market, that is iPhone, and now iPhone are the leading people who are there in the market. See, understand here itself. Supplier power. If we have the supplier power, what happens? How can we work? See, Porter have told this. Now we are experiencing it. Next here, when you have uniqueness of the product or service, relative size and strength of supplier and cost of switching from one supplier to another will happen. Next is the buyer power. Now what the buyer wants is, the buyer always wants the price to come down. So an assessment of how easy it is for buyers to drive price down. So it will come down here. This is the driven by the number of buyers in the market, importance of each individual's buyer to the organization, and cost of the buyer of switching from one supplier to another supplier. If the supplier is not giving for a less rate, the buyer will go to some other suppliers. So that is where the power will actually decline. Next we have is the competitive rivalry. Now I told you about this. Supplier wants for 180 rupees. Buyer wants at a lesser price. Now we have a competitor who is actually selling it for even lesser. Now who is actually having more power? So the main driver in the number of capability of competitors in the market is many competitors offering undifferentiated products and services that will reduce the market attractiveness. And the next one is threat of substitution. Now anything you actually manufacture, there is a country called China, and China will actually manufacture the same kind of substitute for it. So you manufacture something, now within a day you have a Xerox copy of the same kind of a thing. The substitute is always there for it. Now where close substitute product exists in a market, it increases the likelihood of the customer switching to alternative in the response of what? The price increase. So whenever you have the response of the price increase, the customer will always go for the substitute rather than the original now. This reduces both the power of suppliers and the attractiveness of the market. And the last one we have is the threat of new entry. Whenever there is a new entry, what happens is the curiosity is more with the customer, saying that should I buy this or should I not try this? So there are few people who are always want to be like the first buyers. So here profitable market attract new entrant which erodes profitability unless incumbent have strong and durable barriers to enter. For example, say patent, economies of scale, capital requirement of government policies, then profitability will decline to the competitive rate. So here what happens, any company who starts his products and they launch their product, the supplier wants to increase the price, the buyers want the price to be little less. There are people who are the competitors who will actually go with the same kind of a product and they'll launch in the market with a little lesser price so that the customer can attract it. Then we have one more kind of a problem, that is substitute for that particular product. And the last one here we have is what? The threat of new entry. The minute I launch a product, after a month, now I'm getting more profit. After a month, there is a new product in the market. So what happens to this product? That's a question mark. So this is what the beautiful explanation what Porter has actually given to us, and it may come for a 10 marks question. So please be prepared for Michel Porter's theory. Next is types of strategies. Now types of strategies, in your syllabus you have only 3 types of strategies, but I have given here the complete types of strategy. The first one here is competitive strategy, corporate strategy, business strategy, functional strategy, and operating strategy. So what all these strategies are, I'll be explaining it to you in the next session. So please do watch the next session. And if you have any doubt regarding this session, please do call us. We're always there to help you. Thank you so much. I'll see you when I see you.